powered by Riverside.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of The Shift, where real talk meets real change. I am your host, Jessica Sanchez. I am a writer, a activist, a public servant, and honestly, just a regular person who got fed up with the way things are and decided to do something about it. So I created the shift because I was tired of waiting for someone else to start the conversation. I needed a space where we could speak the truth, right? Even when it's messy, a space that doesn't sanitize our pain, our power, or our politics. So, this podcast is for people who are just tired of feeling like they're the only ones who care. And let me tell you something, you are not alone. And today we begin. So, why am I here? So, let me back up a bit, okay, and tell you how this all started. So, growing up as a Puerto Rican in both Lynn, Massachusetts, suburb out of the Boston area, and South Florida, I learned early on that staying quiet was often a survival scale. You didn't speak up unless you were absolutely sure. You didn't question authority unless you were ready to pay the price. And you definitely didn't make people uncomfortable, even when you were deeply uncomfortable yourself. And for a while, I followed those rules. I kept my head down. I focused on work. I told myself, just get through it. Don't rock the boat. But over time, the boat started sinking. And I realized silence wasn't saving me anymore. It was actually suffocating me. So whether it was in a corporate space that taught diversity, but also practiced exclusion, or seeing my community struggle while politicians made empty promises, I hit a point where I couldn't pretend anymore. I just couldn't do it. And when I finally started speaking up, whether it was via my books, which I have two published books, Breaking the Cycle and Democracy Unveil, or at town halls and organizing spaces, I started connecting with so many people who felt the same way. People who were angry, people who were tired, hopeful, and ready for something real. And that's how this podcast, was born. This isn't just a podcast, it's a space for truth, healing, and power. So let's be honest, okay? Silence is dangerous. Silence is comfortable, but it can be very dangerous. When we stay silent about racism, it gives room for white supremacy to hide in plain sight. When we stay silent about sexism, the same old power dynamics, okay, they keep playing out in boardrooms, in courtrooms as well. And this is something that we're seeing, especially now today in this administration. And when we stay silent about poverty, about housing, about mental health, well, we see these people, they suffer in silence, thinking the only ones that are going through them or are going through it, excuse me, are them. So look at what's happening right now with voter suppression laws quietly being passed in state after state. And we are seeing that more and more every day, or with trans youth being targeted just for existing, or with hospitals closing down reproductive care, which we are seeing so many healthcare programs being dismantled, especially when it comes to abortion rights, okay, in underserved communities. and we're told don't get too political. But here's the thing, guys. Our lives are already political. Existing as a woman of color, raising a family while working multiple jobs, working in a nonprofit, working in a background check company, leading an ERG, publishing my books, dealing with broken health systems, showing up in spaces that weren't made for people like us. That in itself is political. So when we choose silence, we're not being neutral. We're letting someone else decide the narrative. That's a luxury some of us really don't have. So let's talk about a shift beginning with one voice. But here's the hope, okay? Change doesn't require perfection. It honestly requires honesty. You don't need to be a scholar. You don't need a fancy microphone or a million followers. You just need to show up with your voice, your story, your truth. Tell your story at the kitchen table with your kids, with your family members, at your church, around your block, in your classroom, on social media if you want, right? Or even in quiet conversations that plant those seeds. Because when we speak, right, we interrupt the narrative. We create a safe space, right? We create essentially a space where, well, let's not even go to a safe space. Let's go to where we create a space where it can make people uncomfortable in the best way possible, right? When enough of us speak, that's when we start to shake things up and systems start to shake. That's when the shift happens. So, what's gonna be coming up next, right? So, what you can expect from this podcast, right, in the next coming up weeks, it will be just me, you and I, having real grounded conversations. I'll be unpacking policy decisions, right? Cultural shifts and things happening in the world that we need to talk about, but often avoid. Other weeks, I'll bring on some amazing guests, activists, artists, organizers, thinkers, and people who are challenging the norms, right? Building power and doing the work in their communities. Um, they're not celebrities, right? They're the folks on the front lines, and they've got wisdom that we really need to hear. So we'll talk about everything from how to survive burnout in activism and in these challenging times, whether you're active in the activism or not, to what real allyship looks like, to how the personal trauma we carry shows up in our politics. So this space is going to be a space that is raw, that is honest, and that is grounded in the belief that we are powerful beyond measure. When we stop pretending and start connecting, that's when we start making real change, guys. So, this has been a really interesting episode, right? If this episode spoke to you, please share it, post it, DM it, email it. Let's get this conversation going. And if you want to support the shift, you can subscribe right now on hero.fm or anywhere where your podcasts are playing. New subscribers will get weekly exclusive episodes, behind the scenes commentary, bonus conversations with guests, and tools that you can actually use in your advocacy or daily life. Okay? We're not just here to talk, we're here to build something and something meaningful at that. So, thank you. Thank you for being a part of this, for showing up, for choosing truth, real talk, real people, real change. This is the shift. Thank you guys. We're just getting started.